they don't do well, they do poorly. And they come from good schools. I interviewed someone from Cornell a few months ago. Cornell is a good school, but the interview didn't go well. And this is my understanding that because of the amount of the information that universities are trying to teach you, and also they are trying to scale up the number of students. Now the classes have 200, 300, 400 students in them, so the professor barely has any time for anyone. And it ends up being the universities pretty much give you the concepts, and the concepts get you this far, and the industry needs you here. So there is a big gap from concepts to where the industry wants you. And this gap is just practice. I cannot emphasize this enough that practice, practice, practice on lead code. There are lots of places these days that you can go and practice coding and get comfortable. So when you see a question about like stack or queue or recursion, you've seen it 10 times already, and this is just the 11th time. If I, like when you go to school and learn addition, your teacher might show you 10 plus 20 is 30. Then you see other numbers and you see 40 plus 50. And if you've done it several times, two new numbers really doesn't change the concept of addition, it's just two new numbers. And you've done it enough to know how to add the next two numbers. Same goes with anything in computer science. No matter how much you just read the book, doesn't come close to really get your hand dirty and really write something. My suggestion is that if just pick something that you've seen 10 times before. Like let's say you want to become an app developer. One of the simple apps to develop is a to-do list. Just create a to-do list with check mark, check off, check on, create a new task, delete it. And doesn't matter if the App Store has 1,000 to-do lists, just write your own, and that helps you practice with these things in a different level. On the algorithm side, but even if you, I've seen this too, that some people are good programmers, but they still don't know the theory well enough to pass the interview. Maybe I was one of them myself back in 2009, 2010 when I passed, because I worked at the industry for over 10 years already, but I still didn't pass my interview. And then as I started to practice more and more, I noticed, yeah, these big companies, there is a certain level of fluency that you need to have with these two concepts, data structure and algorithm, that many people, even if they come from these Ivy League schools, many of them don't have. If anything, I would say, if you have the time, take these courses twice. I don't know if that's a realistic ask, but really the second time you take a course, it's a whole different ballpark. It really gives you a whole different vision of these concepts. Because I've done it myself. When I was doing my master's at San Jose State, I took a class in logic. And I loved it, but I also had a hard time with the concept. Then I took it again, and I was as good as the professor the second time. I don't know if it can be applied to every person. It's sometimes hard to take a course twice, but if you can do it, I think the payoff is big. Yeah. Yes.
Hello, Professor. My name is Alan.
Nice to meet you.
I'm a business major student.
Okay,
So
cool.
my question is, how did you navigate your career path when you were in college? Did you start from the
I think I got lucky that I knew right after junior high that I liked math, and computers were just becoming a thing, and I immediately noticed I liked computers. In my case, I say it was pure luck that I knew what I liked. But I know some people struggle with it. I've seen people who come to computer science CS degree or business or other majors, and they are still unsure if this is the right choice or not. A Few things that I can say is that, first of all, I go to what I'm familiar with, but I think it's applicable to any field. If you are pursuing a path toward computer science, but you sit and you want to write a homework in Java and you feel miserable doing it, that is telling you something. That if you're not into it or enjoying it and you find it difficult, imagine the rest of your life, this is your job every day, 5 times a week, 5 days a week. And if you're not into it or not enjoying it, see, that's a signal that you're getting from this. Same goes for business degrees or any other majors. That the very first step, I think you have to like what you're doing. Put money aside, put career aside. Just on a personal level, do you feel like I'm enjoying this or not? If yes, then you're good for the next step. Of course, things are gonna get hard, especially in computer science. I think these days, computer science is not the same as it used to be 10, 15, 20 years ago. Things are more complicated, and the demand is higher in terms of the ask. And then see if you feel like I'm ready for this level of challenge, and if so, of course, you have enough stamina in your system for the next steps. For business, you're here, and I'm a software engineer, but there is an overlap between your major and mine, and I think there are a couple of basically types of jobs in our industry, mainly management, product management, project management. I don't know if you're familiar with these, and if not, I can tell you a little bit about these two. Sometimes I've seen people even from computer science with an engineering degree end up being a product manager or a project manager, or from the world of business we see it. Product manager is a person who really manages the product, the new features, and stays in contact with the customers to understand their needs and brings that information and that knowledge and insight into the product. Project manager is someone who works with the team, understands the priorities, and works with the manager to schedule the deadlines, figure out what to build first, what to build next, what to build after that. Product manager is more about what to build. Let's say you are a project manager, product manager for this, and you realize that the customers want a heart rate monitor, and they want to have a system that counts their steps. These are the features that customers want, and you come and say, okay, the customers want this feature and this feature, we need to build it, and looks like this other thing no one cares about, let's just forget about it. Product manager focuses on what to build. Project manager focuses on how to build it. So in order to build this, you need a team that builds the screen, you need a team that builds the wristband, you need a team that builds the battery, and you figure out these things. And you may be a project manager just for the battery. Then you need to understand the space, the voltage, all of these things, and how to build a battery within 6 months, because there is a deadline in 6 months. So those are the overlaps that I see between the people from the world of business and people in the high-tech world. So hopefully I answered your question and even a bit more than that.
Appreciate it.
Happy. Anyone else? Yes.
So when you interview someone in technology, what's the biggest red flag? Like, you think that this person is not for the job?
Well, okay, let's see. If they bring their sandwich to the interview, I think that's a good red flag. It hasn't happened yet. A few things, and I think they are the opposite extremes of each other. One, if they go quiet and they don't communicate well. Even if they keep writing, it's not the only thing I'm looking for. I need to read your mind. I need to understand if I can work with you, if you become my co-workers, can we work together, can we develop an idea together, can we solve a problem together, and for that I need to see how you communicate what you're thinking. That's a big part. Very good question, because again, if anything, another suggestion I have for you guys, if you can take a course in communication or in technical writing, put that in something that you might wanna add to your basically skill set. Communication and technical writing. There are many good candidates with poor communication. Just they either go quiet or they can't just articulate what they have in mind. And it doesn't matter if they are Einstein, and that they may have a beautiful mind, but if they cannot express it, that's bad. So not communicating well. On the other extreme, over communicating. I've seen people that just go on and on without really, again, that goes to their poor skill set when it comes to communication, that they want to say something, they want to say this is bottle of water, but they go around and just don't land the plane. That's that. Another red flag that I don't think it hasn't really happened in my case, but it could be a bad thing, is that they don't take my input to them. So they are either so cocky or so arrogant or not listening to what I'm saying, that no, here you cannot use this data structure, you need to use that. And that's also bad. And of course, beside the obvious, that they choose Python, and this happened to me, a candidate chose Python as their language, and they started writing pseudocode. And I pointed it out that you said you are a Python developer. And the candidate said, yeah, I don't know Python well enough. I said, I'm sorry, but we need you to be an engineer. Next week, if you're my coworker, you have to start writing pure, good, nicely written Python code. And that's a red flag. So for your interview, whatever language you choose, be it Java, C, C++, Python, be good at it and write very good code. Writing good code is just like calligraphy, right? Handwriting. Some people have good handwriting, some people don't have good handwriting. Same comes to coding. Some people write beautiful code. 10 years later, you come and write their code. It's so clear what they wrote. Some people just, oh my God, even the next day they come, they cannot read their own code. So make sure use good variable names, good function names. If all of these little things mean a lot. So no x1, x2, y, x, just if you have a variable that basically you call a service and you get the response, call that variable response, don't call it x. So all of these little things add up. So some of these are red flags, but some of these, yeah, maybe not so much of a red flag, but still a negative point.
Where can you actually take a class in like technical writing, like you said?
And what about it?
I'm saying, where can you actually take
Oh.
a class?
Here.
Here? Really?
Yeah. I think it's.
That's a thing. I didn't know.
It must be a thing, because as far as I know, it has always been a thing, and believe me, it helps. I was a skeptic when I took a class myself, and it's a whole different way of writing. It's not, and once you get into it, you start to appreciate it a lot more. A couple of my students are here, and I emphasize on writing good, clean proof. It's not just because of that, because it puts you in a mindset that, believe it or not, at least 50% of my job these days is not about coding. It's about either reading other people's document or writing a document myself. It's a lot more about communication than it's about just writing some Python or Java code. So if I write bad documents, I'm putting my coworkers into a hard time. They have to read my poorly written document. Vice versa, if they write a bad document, it's gonna be more work for me. So as a software engineer, you get to a point that these two become such a critical part of your work, that coding starts to fade out and fade away and become such a small part or such a trivial part of your task, because now you need to, especially if you want to later become like a manager, director, all that, first of all, you need to be a good communicator. You have to be able to express your ideas and thoughts, whether verbally or in writing. So make sure, yeah, take writing course, make a communication course if you can do it. Believe me, it's gonna pay off. Sure.
Definitely not gonna fit in my 18-unit schedule.
21 shouldn't be too bad. Maybe next quarter or one sometime. And even if you cannot take it, at least look online for some tips and ideas. Once you get into the rhythm, it's not that hard. It's just a certain type of mindset when it comes to writing.
Yeah.
Mostly you go step by step, kind of like a mathematical proof. You have certain assumption, and then based on those you have more points to make or more things to prove. But yeah, it has a very certain flow.
That's not us.
Yes.
I've had a few students who couldn't make it to the
Okay,
meeting
sure.
today and emailed me about. So what's the course path to get you to where you are right now?
Okay, well, here's actually another thing I wanted to suggest. If you pursue a path beyond your undergrad degree, if you go through master or PhD, this is given. You're going to emphasize on something in your PhD or in your master. Maybe become like a machine learning engineer, data scientist, things like that, or cybersecurity, networking. That usually happens after you get into master or PhD programs. Not so much in undergrad, but I still believe you can still make that happen a little bit. My suggestion is that from early on, within 2 years that you're in the program in the software engineering, start to figure out what type of software engineer you want to be. Again, if you want to be ML engineer or cybersecurity or web developer, full stack developer, all of that, detect that and find that about yourself early on, and take one, maybe 2 courses in that, and do some projects in that. From an early stage, put yourself in that path, and so you believe that you are that engineer, you're an ML engineer, and your basically open source project or your GitHub repo shows that there are traces of that skill set in your 4-year degree. Other than that, the universities offer a bunch of courses, compiler, database. Good to take all of these, but of course you have a limited time, so you don't want to just take some random course. At least my suggestion is that in the field that you want to be in, take two courses. If you can do 3, even better. I don't know if getting a minor in that is an option. That would be ideal, but probably not an option. Yes.
Would you mind to share about how did you get your first job and whether you like it or not?
My very first job as a software engineer, through someone I knew. I had just moved to Silicon Valley, and a person I knew was working for a startup company, also a software engineer, and he referred me, and within a month I got the job. Back then the barrier to entry was super easy. All you needed to do was like take an HTML course somewhere and you would get a job. Things have changed quite a lot. But even back then, knowing someone helped a lot. That's another thing. It helps. You have no idea how much it helps if you know someone, not just because they are gonna say welcome and join us on Monday. There is still a process, but knowing someone and having someone refer you makes huge difference. Here is an example. Google gets around 2 to 3 million resumes every year from all over the world, and hires around maybe 20 to 30,000 engineers. It's almost 1%. So out of 100 applicants, 1% finds a job at Google. 99% of the resumes are either going unnoticed, or maybe a few people get an interview but get nowhere. However, Google has a referral program. If I know someone, let's say I work with you, I've seen your work, and if I feel like you are Google material, I can refer you internally, and you get a lot more visibility, and the chance that you get a job interview goes from 1% maybe to 30%, 40% all of a sudden. So make these connections with people that you know, engineers who work in these big companies, even small companies. And there is a lot of value working for a small company, because you can make a lot more mistake and break things and learn a lot more and a lot faster. So I really enjoyed working for startup companies myself, and there's definitely a huge value in there. But no matter what, I highly recommend that you make some connection with people who are already in the industry. Sure. Do you have your next question?
Yeah, basically they're asking about, the courses that they need to take in college, and do you recommend to go to master's program or PhD program to increase, the chance of getting a job?
Let me drink some water.
Sure, of course.
How much time do we have?
And we have about 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. Let me take you all the way to the end of PhD in 10 minutes. Yeah. We are, as software engineers, it's one of those blessed fields of work that you can go so far a lot with just a bachelor degree. All you need to have is a bachelor degree, and you can already do a lot with it. But with recent development in high tech, you can even go further and further with masters and with PhD. Lots of my colleagues already have PhDs in computer science, and especially if you want to end up in research areas, definitely a PhD is the right way to go, and you can be in the industry and still do a lot of good research. There was another thing. In terms of what school to go to, I know when you're at this stage of life, all you want to do is end up in an Ivy League school, Stanford, Berkeley. I understand the reason. When you start, your resume doesn't have much, so having the name like Stanford, MIT plays a big role, and it helps a lot, no question about it. But once you get into the industry and you work for a few years, that almost becomes totally irrelevant. My bachelor degree is from University of Reno, Nevada. I bet none of you have even heard of it. My master was from San Jose State. I'm sure a few of you heard of it. I did my PhD, I didn't finish it, but I was a PhD student at UC Berkeley. I guess you have heard of that, but that never played a role in my acceptance at Google. So even from an unknown university like Reno, there's a chance you can get it. So, and believe me, when I was at San Jose State, I felt like I got a lot more education from San Jose State compared to when I was at Berkeley. I'm not putting Berkeley down. Berkeley is, of course, amazing school, but the professors kind of assume that you are on your own and you are doing your own study. Whereas at San Jose State, my professors were just amazing, and I really appreciated my time at San Jose State. So my suggestion is that don't worry too much about the school you end up in. If it's a good school and big name, great. But if it's not, don't worry. The main thing you're gonna look at is you, not the name of your school. If you can solve that interview question on the whiteboard, come from University of North Pole, you're okay. And don't worry too much about what school you're coming from.
Thank you.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yes.
What kind of things stand out on like an application or a resume?
Good question. Nowadays, of course, resumes are mostly read by computer, by machines, and they look for keywords. So it means that if you come with that mindset, and first you need to pass the first hurdle, which is just someone look at my resume. Your resume should have good keywords, but these keywords should be based on your real skill set. Otherwise, you can just go and randomly just pick a bunch of keywords, put it in there. So it helps a lot. Again, let me go back to the field that I'm more familiar with, machine learning. There are certain technologies, TensorFlow, Keras, PyTorch, Pandas, all of these things, more modern, JAX. If you work with these, you don't have to have a PhD in TensorFlow, but if you have a project which is 200 lines in GitHub that you wrote, that's enough that you can put TensorFlow in your resume. First of all, decorate with your resume with some meaningful keywords, and work enough to know enough about those keywords and the technology concepts, whatever they may be. Going back, repeat your question for me. Let me make sure I.
Just like what kind of things stand out on like resume?
So, in terms of resume keywords, and again, a little bit about the school name in the beginning, but I doubt that it plays the big role that as a student you may think it plays. It plays a bit of role. Again, when your resume is small, GPA is good, school projects are good, community contribution plays a big role. One of my friends was a West Valley student, and he was involved in several like school teams, chess, robot, things like that. But it really helped his application when he was applying to Berkeley, and he got in. Same goes for the next step. When you want to apply, we want to see if you have social skills, that you can collaborate with others, you can work with others in a good fashion. Doesn't matter if you're just building a sand castle or a rocket ship, but it shows that you have collaboration skills. Things like that definitely stands out in early stages of like application. Later on, of course, more work projects, things that you've done in other companies, the impacts that you have at other companies, those play a big role.
We have 5 more minutes.
5 more minutes.
Let's wrap
Maybe
it up,
2
everyone.
more questions then.
Yeah, so related to that, do you include your non-technical experiences too? For example, if you're running like NGO or something like that, so would that help or not?
That definitely, again, going back, we are looking for people with also soft skills. Soft skills is everything that you are just mentioning. Some of them may be relevant. If I can make a good soup at home, that probably doesn't really help with resume. But if it means that, first of all, you feel you are a part of a community and you contribute to the community and you work with others. Again, NGO is a very good example, and I appreciate it that you do it. And that's definitely a very good thing to add. It definitely tells us something about you, that you are a person that we can rely on, that you can be a part of our team on a day-to-day basis. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I can come to you and get your help. So definitely add it. And if you don't have it, add it to the pile of 18 units that you need to take. Yes?
What's like the most enjoyable company experience you've had, like you work with? Like,
At Google or overall?
Just overall.
At Google, all the non-working part is good. The free lunch and free this and that. A good example that comes to my mind was the startup company that I worked prior to Google. I joined as a data scientist, and a small team of engineers. I was the second data scientist there. And within a very short period of time, I had a big impact, and I created several very interesting projects related to data science and ML. That was a very fun 6 months that I had. And after that, things started to change, and a year after that, I joined Google. But I really enjoyed it. And besides Google has its good projects too. I'm trying to remember other things. When I was a part of SRI, Stanford Research Institute, we had this project called Kalo, Cognitive Assistant that learns and organizes. It's something that ChatGPT kind of offers now. We were doing it years late before with more primitive technology, hardware and software. And we had many interesting contributions. Again, out of that project, Siri was born. And we didn't even understand the value of Siri. The interesting thing is that the founder of Siri was a colleague of mine. They came, and in a presentation, they asked for SRI to give them the licensing of the project Kalo. They wanted to call it Kalo, but the company disagreed. So their second best choice was Siri, which I believe is the name of a flower in Norwegian. The second founder was from Norway. So they went with Siri, and a few years later, we realized we should have given them the name Kalo, because Siri became a lot more famous and Kalo became forgotten. There's a wiki page about Kalo now, but it was discontinued.
Thank you very much.
One last question, and then we wrap up.
In your preference, would you prefer a one-page resume or like multiple-page resume? Because people say that a one-page resume will look good because it has all the points which are really necessary for the job.
Good question. Let me. When you graduate, absolutely one page. Until you have 5 years of experience, one page, and it means find a way. Learn art of communication and good keyboarding to keep it in one page. After 5, even maybe 10 years, then your resume can start to get bigger. After 20 years, now my resume is 2 pages, and there are reasons for it. My old jobs at this point are so irrelevant that doesn't matter what I did, whether I was a dishwasher or a CEO of that company. 20 years ago, probably has none of those technologies even exist now. So it's really irrelevant. So the window of your resume should really emphasize of what you did in the past 10 years. And before that, you can just drop older stuff. Nowadays, people don't read your resume, computers read your resume, and a handful of them get in front of recruiters or hiring managers. And even those people don't have enough patience to sit and read a 2-page resume. I've done it. I just glance over a couple of keywords just to get a feel of what this person, this candidate is. I'm not going to sit and read a story about like one time they used this like variable, like blah, blah, blah. So absolutely keep it in one page. And at least after working for 5 years in the industry, then come back to me and can talk about adding a second page. Well, best of luck to you all, and thank you for coming. I know it's been a cold day.